Amazon earnings after the bell. Sales should be big, but what about profits? Let's talk to Rob Cieran of Reuters Breaking View. All right, Rob, what do you think? Margins here, always a question at Amazon. They said that their holiday sales season was the biggest ever after the Bell report.
That doesn't necessarily mean their profits are going to be the biggest ever. In fact, they could be some of the lowest profits ever. We just don't know. Amazon has a long history of what they do is they their sales increase very rapidly. The problem is their profits don't. And then sales don't grow and then profits do. And the problem is that over the past year or 2 years, sales have been growing very quickly and profits have been nosediving. And the stock keeps on going up and up and up. The problem is if the stock keeps on going up and up, eventually profits have to rise, and they just haven't shown any ability to do that.
All right, so a couple factors here. First, let's talk about the Kindle, because everybody wants to talk about the Kindle. Sales of the Kindle.
Amazon doesn't want to talk about it.
Exactly, because they don't really give out hard numbers.
No, all they ever say is, Kindles are going great. It's the best-selling item we have, but we're not going to tell you how many we sold or what price they sold.
So there's sort of good news, bad news there, because what does that mean? Because it sort of hurts their earnings in a sense, right? I mean, it's sort of a good buzz if they're selling a lot of Kindles, but in terms of actually business dollars and cents, it's not necessarily a good thing for them.
We don't know. It's like a supermarket saying we sold the record amount of milk this quarter, and they're not saying, well, we sold it for $1 a gallon.
Right.
Of course, they sold a lot of them. So we don't know. And the problem is that it seems like it hurts Amazon's margins. That could be an okay business, because maybe they sell a lot of ebooks. However, they just don't give us enough. All they do is give us some rah-rah numbers, and it doesn't mean much.
Originally, it was a loss leader, right, when they introduced the Kindle?
It probably still is.
It probably still is. All right, the other question is sales tax, because it avoided sales tax because it doesn't have a bricks and mortar space. We've talked about this a lot on the show, but it's really key here because big states like California, Texas, Pennsylvania now collecting the sales tax, so that sort of levels the playing field.
We've also seen something like Best Buy has said, for instance, in those states, their online sales have gone up. That implies that they're taking some sales away from Amazon. However, Amazon, it's used its time, its sales tax holiday, to build a nice business. Will that sustain? Probably, but it probably will cut down the growth. In other words, they don't have that advantage. It's gone away, so Amazon's growth will probably take a hit.
All right, interesting. We'll have to watch today. Stock's down just a bit in anticipation, down 2%. All right, Rob Cieran, thank you so much. I'm now going to, in other earnings, break things down by sector here. Let's look at chip and chip gear makers. You see Kulicke. Yes, Kulicke Soffa. They are a semiconductor equipment company. First quarter adjusted profit beat estimates, but forecast for second quarter below analyst expectations. And you can see they're down about 9.5% there. Mindspeed Technologies product revenue jumped 13%. They design and develop semiconductor chips. We're talking big techie stuff here for kind of network infrastructure applications. And finally, PLX Technology. Chips more for digital TVs, for video surveillance equipment. Beat on profit, forecast first quarter revenue above estimates, and they increased their market share of what they call PCI Express products. That's getting real techie in terms of how things work there in the chip sort of communications world. And we're going to look at some data equipment stocks. These are all folks here basically who make hard drives, and you can see with PC sales waning, we've got a slew of red arrows looking down there. And finally, we're going to go through these all reported earnings today and the energy sector, last but not least, Valero and Peabody. Valero is the largest U.S. independent refiner, and they jumped in fourth quarter profit due to cheaper domestic crude oil, and Peabody, largest U.S. coal producer by volume, and they also warned they would post an adjusted current quarter loss, but they are both got some green arrows up there today. And with that, I'm now going to move to the hot spot and talk to Ernie Scheider, Reuters correspondent. Remember to check out the snaps at the bottom of the screen for more headlines of the day. Ernie, let's talk us some Ford. Operating profit will match last year. They're down 5.5%. This is mainly because of these continuing problems in Europe, because they're gaining traction, stronger sales in North America.
Yes, very bad signs in Europe. We've known Europe's been rough for the automakers for a long time, but Ford's chief financial officer, Bob Skanks, came out and said he thinks that there's a recession for the full year going to be in Europe. Not necessarily, a new prognostication, but, I think a lot of people have been looking at Europe for trouble for a while. The trick is, how is Ford going to turn its European business around? And it's going to use the blueprint it used to turn its North American business around. It's going to cut production. It's going to really focus on key customers, on key spaces, maybe smaller cars. Out is the big SUV that we used to be Ford's 1990s, a Hallmark, So they're really going to try the strategy that CEO Al Mulally used to turn the North American business around and try to put that on Europe.
All right, let's move on to Corning, the specialty glass maker, and tell me now, what is so great about Gorilla Glass?
Well, everyone has a smartphone, right? You know, whether it's a Samsung or any of the other brands out there, they all use this Gorilla Glass. It's basically a very thick, strong glass that can use with a touch interface. And as more and more people want smartphones, there's more and more demand for Gorilla Glass. Remember, Corning was the company that Steve Jobs famously pushed to develop glass for the first iPhone.
Right, interesting. All right, and finally, let's get to housing and some good news here from D.R. Horton, the home builder. Profits more than doubled, and the orders are up 39%. Stocks up 10.5% today.
Yes, a very strong sign for housing. I mean, obviously, during the recession, nobody would touch these stocks, but more and more people are coming out and buying homes. And D.R. Horton builds homes in the range of $100,000 to $600,000. So you get a pretty wide range in terms of income there. So you're reaching a lot of different, income, lower class, middle class, upper class, and if across the board, more and more people are buying new homes. That's a positive sign.
All right, let's go back now to the Market Monitor and look at U.S. stocks and see what's going on here with the market. And we can pull that up. We'll get there in just a second.
Sure.
I think we're basically flat, and the NASDAQ, I think, is down because of those hardware companies that, there we are. Just a bit there, basically flat there because of some of those hardware companies that we mentioned earlier. And let's look at oil. U.S. crude futures headed for a 7th weekly advance, the longest run of gains since 2009.
I think you got to look at two factors here for this recent jump. A lot of positive macroeconomic indicators lately. We've been talking about Case-Shiller, but there have been a few others, especially around housing. That points to a U.S. consumer that is more confident. That means the economy is getting stronger, hence prices go up. But also, I think you got to look at some geopolitical issues, especially in the Middle East right now. When you look at Egypt, which controls the Suez Canal, a prime oil transport hub, there's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty right now. The head of the army recently just said, he's not sure if the government will stand. That's going to have an effect on global oil prices, and they're going up.
All right, Ernie Schneider, thank you so much. It does it for us. Remember, folks, follow us on Twitter at Reuters Insider and get more great videos at Reuters.com/ReutersTV. I'm Lisa Bernhard. This is Reuters.